Welcome everybody to Red's Ramblings. I'm joined today with Grace, who originally from China, but moved here to the States, you said 10 years ago, correct?
Yeah, I think this year's 11th year for me. Yeah.
Okay. Quickly, tell a little bit people about yourself.
So I actually born and raised in China, Beijing, China, and I came here to pursue a master's degree in statistics. And then I worked at startups and negotiated a raise and the title change. And then months later, I quit my job and decided to start my dog training business. So my company's name is Mensa Mats, and I specialize in shy, fearful, and reactive dogs. So I really help the owners who communicate with their dogs so they can live a fuller life with their dogs. So yeah, that's kind of what I do right now.
All right, well, that's a very interesting career path you picked. You said you moved here for statistics?
Yep, I have a master's degree in statistics.
What caused you to move to the States to pursue that?
Well, so it's kind of a trend thing. I guess people in China love to, like, if they could, they have opportunity like go abroad to study. So that's kind of like for me, it's actually opportunity come up. Well, it's a very personal story. My father actually passed away, and somehow that opened up an opportunity come over because of funding and stuff. So that's kind of how it all started. I never thought I would have come over for studying, but yeah, kind of happened.
All right. Well, one things I was interested in, and I started to realize very, very shortly into researching about Beijing and China in general, is one, obviously how vast and large China is. So, and even you said there's probably not a lot, there's definitely a lot that even you wouldn't know about. So I got to thinking, I was like, all right, well, I got to be specific with what I look up, that hopefully she'll know what it is and can explain it more. So I kind of dealt with that. So hopefully I will probably stick to the usual, like Forbidden City, Great Wall of China, stuff like that. But I'm going to at least attempt some more stranger things that I learned today that hopefully you'll know as well. If not,
Sure.
We'll both be learning together. But one of the things I came across was that Beijing's the capital of China, and it has been the capital 6 different times for like previous governments back in the day, 6 notable Chinese governments, from the Yan state capital in 221 BC to the first national capital for the Yuan dynasty, if I'm saying that correctly. Then also became the Ming dynasty capital, the Republic of China capital, and Qing. How do you pronounce that?
Qing.
Okay, Qing dynasty capital as well. So 6 different capitals throughout the growth of the country, as well as Beijing is the 16th name that it has had. It has a previous title of Jiqin. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. City of Ji.
Ji.
Okay.
So just full disclaimer, I suck at history, so everything you're telling me is new right now. I know vaguely about things. If we say Beijing is basically how I learned the history is that if you know feng shui, it's just a good place. So that's why all those places pick Beijing as capital. That's kind of the history, that how I interpret it without all the numbers and the years,
All right. So this is definitely going to end up being a pretty interesting sit down right now. What are some of the things would you say from your time in Beijing, though? Like, have you been back since you've moved to the States?
Nope. So I bet there a lot of things have changed, and haven't gone back for 11 years. Just kind of had no reason to, I guess, and always feel like there's no right time, and then they're always busy with other things. But I guess part of it, if you talk about culture side, I'd say probably nothing much changed. your city
Mhm.
can have buildings and stuff, but how the people there and stuff, probably very few have changed. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not.
I understand pretty much what you're talking about, I think anyways, because I think we kind of have that here. Like things are moving in a direction, but they're still kind of the same. So I do understand that a bit. Hopefully, though, we can get into foods. So it's not history, it's foods. Hopefully, that's something we can discuss because I'm a big foodie. I like a lot of food. One of the ones that I came across that just by the title alone, I had to ask Donkey Burger.
Donkey burger.
That, that's what I'm reading.
If that's what I think it is, it's probably not
Uh-huh.
donkey meat.
I don't think it said necessarily donkey meat either.
Yeah.
But the title it has here says Donkey Burger, originating in the city of Baoding, I think,
Uh-huh.
in northern Hebei province. Beijing has adopted the Donkey Burger as its own. Restaurants offering this dish serve a number of different donkey meals. However, the one to try is the Donkey Burger. Oh, shredded donkey meat is served in a piping hot, crunchy bun with a green pepper relish.
Okay. I'm on Chinese Google right now, so I'm gonna see what it is, and I'm gonna explain it to you after I read it in Chinese. All right.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Okay, they actually said, yeah, it's real donkey meat. And then, well, I wouldn't call it burger, it's probably more like sandwich from
Yeah.
how I want to actually tell you this story. So in China, when I learned English, burger means sandwich, sandwich means burger. There's no difference. So I
Yeah.
still remember when I first arrived in US in airport, I went to McDonald's. I said I want a fish burger. They'll look at me like I was nuts.
Yeah. For us,
And
fish is not a burger. Yeah.
right, so burger pretty much only means it's beef. That's burger, right? Other
Mhm.
things I'll call sandwich. So yeah, if you look at the picture, I'm on this Chinese Google website. That's how I call it. It's actually more of like a sandwich. It's definitely not burger. Um, that's funny. I actually never had. I don't think I ever had donkey meat before. I can't
Yeah.
tell.
I've had horse meat, but I've never had donkey before. Yeah. Another one I have two more.
Okay.
And this one goes in the same term of donkey. This one called rolling donkey.
Oh, that's a dessert actually, I believe.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, it does say red bean, which I've had red bean before. That stuff's real good.
Really? Okay. Most Americans don't like red bean paste. So you must have a unique taste.
Well, at one of my old jobs, one of the guys I worked with, his wife was from South Korea, if I recall.
Oh, okay.
So I had it from there, and then at my job now, I work with a guy who's originally from Vietnam. So they both brought red bean variety of foods around, and yes, that's just really good. And it caught me off guard because yeah, like I'm thinking, as an American, I'm thinking beans are not necessarily sweet. So he's like, "Come
Mhm.
on, try. It's a dessert." I think the first one I had was a pastry, like it was a fried dumpling type deal. And he's like, "It's sweet. It's sweet. It's red bean." I was like, "No, beans aren't sweet." And I had it. And I was like, "Whoa, that's really good." So one of the other ones I have, and I'm just gonna read it how it's spelled here because
Okay.
it's a very unique name.
Okay.
Tuckahoe pie.
Okay. I have no clue what that is. Could you spell it out?
Yes, Tuckahoe. Tuckahoe pie.
Idaho pie.
It's yeah. It says is a traditional paper thin snack in the shape of a full moon, popular in Beijing. It consists of a basic
Okay.
pancake
Okay.
wrapped in honey, sugar, and assorted nuts.
Yeah. So this is actually very close to one of the Japanese thing because I watch a lot of animes recently. They have this thing, basically like a two-piece of pancake and with red bean paste in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. And I don't think I was a big fan of it when I grew up. It's just kind of a plain taste thing. Yeah. Never. I couldn't. What the heck translation is that? Don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. It gives the Chinese version of it, Huling Jiabing, but I'm probably totally wrong on that. It says, according to legend, Tuckahoe pie originated in the South Song Dynasty, and the preparation method and required equipment were well documented. Oh, it comes from a herb. The herb Tuckahoe has many medical effects. That's where that comes from. Okay. And therefore is popular with Chinese people, especially women and the elderly. All right. I didn't read that part first time I looked at it. I just saw the title. I was like, I got to ask about that. That's a very unique name right there. One of the other things I want to talk about, obviously, is even I know you said you're not big into history, but China's very old. A lot of the history from back in the day has been well preserved compared to other countries, with palaces that are still pretty much there, sacred monuments and all that kind of stuff. The tradition is very rooted still in Chinese culture. So everyone knows, for the most part, about the Great Wall of China, which Beijing has a huge chunk of that in it, apparently. The Forbidden City, I'm sure if you research anything on Chinese history, you probably know a little bit about the Forbidden City, which I think is the largest palace in the world, if I recall. But two other ones that I didn't know about, which hopefully you can talk a little bit about, the Temple of Heaven and the White Cloud Temple. Yes, White Cloud Temple. Are you familiar with those two?
I have to Google, what the Chinese name are, because
okay. Yeah.
Temple of Heaven. Okay, let me see where that is. Okay, I know what that is. All right. Okay. And then what the other thing is?
Which one did you look up first?
I look up Temple of Heaven.
Okay. White Cloud Temple.
White Cloud Temple.
Yes.
Okay, I don't think I've ever been to White Cloud Temple. I heard of it. I don't think I've been there before.
Yeah, I think I've seen the Temple of Heaven before, but the White Cloud one I've never seen before. So do you have a little bit you could speak on the Temple of Heaven at least?
Temple of Heaven. So I believe in Beijing. So basic Temple of Heaven actually about sky. It's basically a place you pray to the sky in a sense to hope like there's rain for the season, good weather and stuff. And then we have temple like, I guess, if I translate temple of moon, so that sort of thing, and temple of earth. So it's the same concept. So that's one of those. I'm not sure if there's a very special thing, but I guess it's like one of the more famous one compared to others.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure why. I think it's very close to Forbidden City, and that possibly why it's a little more popular than others. I actually never been to Great Wall before.
Really?
I know a lot of people like, oh my gosh, how that even possible? Yeah, never been there.
I guess just growing up, it's something you've always known. So it's not as special. So like those of us from the outside, we just hear of it, we see pictures, we know how long it is, how old it is, the story surrounding it. So we're looking at it from the outside like, oh, we gotta go.
I mean, just like if it's like, obviously it's not exactly that close to my house per se, but you almost feel like, okay, it's right out of your house, you actually don't go. I'm pretty sure if I go visit you, you're in South Carolina, right?
Correct.
And say, if I visit you, I would say, oh, I read on Google Map, this is a place we need to go visit. You'll be like, oh, that's just an ordinary park. I don't know, but, right? Like,
oh yeah.
So the sort of things like that. But the tour is more of like tourist spot, including Forbidden City. I believe when I left China, I think the tickets was super expensive, maybe like $100, $150 per person. And it's extremely crowded. It's like, for us, it's like not worth going for the trouble. It's really just, okay, if you have a foreign friend, that's where you go. So the locals probably won't go just for fun. It's not that sort of a place. And I'm actually not sure if Chinese park sell like season pass or anything like that. So I don't
Oh,
think
yeah.
they do. So it's a little different like here, like, oh, you love a park, you buy season pass, you go all the time, right? There is
Yeah.
just like a extremely like a tourist spot, like a
For
group of
sure.
people from somewhere and have tour guide you to go, or you have friends from out of town. That's a place to go. So gosh, when was the last time I went there? Probably when I was 16 or 17. I don't remember. So that's like, and then when we were very young, we went there with the school. The school will
Yeah.
organize trips, and that's when
Oh,
you
yeah.
go there. So that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, actually, on that, you bring up something I just thought of. So Forbidden City and the temples, Great Wall, you know, since it's for you, it was, you know, like behind your house or whatever. That's how it was in your mind, right? So it was really a tourist thing. Are there some stuff that the local Chinese would visit more often, or it would be that like everyday go-to thing that maybe the tourists wouldn't know about, like, you know, the secret spots of the locals?
Huh. There actually was a place. I actually have a name for it. Let me see if I can find it. I'll give you official Chinese name and see what it
Okay.
is. This is actually like eventually become a bar area for a lot of foreigners to hang out.
Okay.
It's really called Beihai Park. I guess that's nothing special
All right.
about it. So this is a place that have a little lake, and there's a little temple. You can have boats there, and it's a nice little park. I think it's also fairly cheap to go in, maybe like several bucks or something like that back in the time, 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
then the little town around it, they actually starting building a lot of the restaurants and bars, make it like a strip mall around. And
Yeah.
so a lot of foreigner will go there to drink. And then they have like a tourist guide to take you to a place called Hutongs. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I was going to ask you about those because don't mean to cut you off, but I found that same word kept popping up, and I was like, all right, let me look into what this is. And I looked into it, and it still doesn't make a lot of sense to me because all I'm reading at for this is it's an alleyway, but apparently it's regarded as something more. I don't understand. Can explain that to me, please?
So it is alleyway, but most of those are special alleyway from very old towns, right? So when they old time build houses, we don't have really houses per se, but build the way the kind of like Forbidden City, but smaller version of it. That's your
Yes.
house. And then so between the walls, there's like walking ways, and they usually super narrow, only fit one person. And that's what it makes special. So if you're like overweight, you probably cannot even pass certain places. And then it's basically only for locals to know. Like you will know where to go. If there's no map or anything, you completely from the memory, or you grow up in the area, you know where to run to and stuff like that. And there was a while when I grew up, they will have people to tell you that how people cheat the taxi driver. So you will take a taxi, and then you stop the place, and they said, "Oh, wait for me here." And then they will actually go to this alleyway, and that alleyway actually go to the other part of town. So the person basically just run off through that alleyway. And so then there's a news tell you there's 3 famous hutongs that if you're a taxi driver, you don't want to go there, that person is going to ditch you and run. But you wouldn't know because only local knows, right?
Yeah.
And I see it more like if you never see it, it's like if you watch European movies from Europe, you know, the people like little cars, very narrow, they barely fit the car. So imagine that there's no way to fit in a car. Some of them are a little wider, but most of them basically really fit one person or 2 people. And so you can like kind of, I guess people to think is very interesting. And I did not know the history of how they exactly build. I think it's not really on purpose. It's just like, okay, you build 2 houses and then they can't share walls. So now you have to have a space. and that become a hudong
It
type
just
of
happened.
thing.
Yeah.
That's my understanding of how it happened. So
Yeah.
from like you said, if you read it English, just called alleyway, how special that could be.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of them. They're random sized, right? And going different places that you would not know. And then now
Mhm.
I'm sure the tourist place, they probably like explore more and have maps sort of thing and tell
Yeah.
you maybe something have a history. I believe that's kind of like what's actually going on.
Yeah, because one of the things I was looking at is, I guess during the development of the city, some of them were getting torn down to, build buildings and whatnot. And they mentioned a specific one or specific town that they were about to demolish them to rebuild. And like the citizens rose up and like, no, this is our culture, our tradition, our history. We don't want you to do that. And again, just like I said, I'm like, it's an alleyway, right? How is that? So I'm glad that came up, because I was going to bring it up at some point for sure. Because that was definitely one of the things I found. Everything else I ended up looking at, I kind of knew a little bit about, or I've heard about, but an alleyway that kept popping up, I had to ask, what was up with an alleyway for sure. One of the other things I found, and I'm sorry, this is another history thing. China's known for inventing a lot, from gunpowder. I think it said like the four great inventions: gunpowder, paper, printing, and the compass. But I remember growing up as a kid watching like History Channel, Discovery Channel, and anytime they would have a special on China, I was right there in the living room. I'm sitting down watching it. And a lot of it, when all the families, the dynasties were fighting up against each other, I think it's the romance of the Three Kingdoms, if I recall. During or around that time, they even invented the crossbow, the repeating crossbow. Since gunpowder, basically anything that went boom, from bombs, fireworks, obviously, landmines, whole bunch. If it revolved around, handgun. Apparently, the first depiction of a handgun was from I can't remember what dynasty it was, but it was from a canvas that was written from like something, I want to say 1200 something. That gave a small description of what a handgun is. And another one I'm looking at, and I don't know how to pronounce this right, so I'm gonna spell out. And apparently it's a French word, but it's apparently was a thing that the Chinese did way back in the day. Cloisonne. It's a form of like pottery or something like that, like China porcelain.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you could speak on?
I don't know the history of it, but it's very famous, and it's a particular. I'm not sure if a particular type of pottery or it's the paint. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're very colorful.
That, and usually the base always kind of blue. Let me see. So yeah, it's special and extremely expensive.
Yeah.
And a lot of knockoffs.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, so basically, like, there's metal inside of this pottery, and that's what makes it special.
Okay, yeah, I'm seeing it now. It's that, soldering or fixing silver or gold wires or thin strips placed around the edges.
So that's apparently make it special. Article's long, but I guess.
Yeah.
And and when I grew up, they will tell you, oh, this is that. I don't ever remember how they teach us why is that or anything like that. And all I know is there will be like fake ones and real ones, right? Real ones in the museum. The rest you see all fake.
Another interesting fact that I thought of, because everyone knows, between China and India, those two countries are the most populated, right? Both of y'all have over 1 billion people. And one of these statistic that came around, it was an older, I think it was from 2016, so it might not be accurate today, but it said that if you had the world's population, that 1 in 5 people are Chinese. And when I thought of that, I was like, that puts into perspective how many there are when you think of in all of the world. I don't know how many billions we have now, but if 1 in 5 of us is Chinese, that's an enormous number right there. So you're originally from China, from Beijing, and I found at least everyone knows. Well, not everyone, because some people actually think that Chinese is a legit language. It's not a language. It's just the people. Y'all have Mandarin, Cantonese, and there's a few more, but Mandarin's the most popular. Cantonese is number 2. Which one do you speak?
So I speak Mandarin. Mandarin is actually the government language. So the government language.
Government,
is
okay.
Mandarin. Now, actually, in China, I think I was taught it's more of a dialect.
Mhm.
But there are actually way more than 2 of them.
Yeah.
Probably like 50 or something. So just
Really?
know every region you go to in China, we
Mhm.
don't understand each other.
Yeah.
So that's how many of them are, and we even write differently. Some of the languages are spoken only, there's no words,
Okay.
and most of language has its own characters and everything.
Mhm.
And if I from here to if say I were in Beijing and you drive for 2 hours, you actually arrive another town called Tianjin or something like that. It's a little
Okay.
town. If they speak their own dialect, I would not understand them. So there are way more than Mandarin and Cantonese. The reason here people know those 2 because Cantonese are also, I believe Cantonese is also a large category of type of language people are spoken down south. They actually, people from Hong Kong actually they have their own dialect, and it's not exactly Cantonese. And then people from Guangdong, I think that's a proper Cantonese per se, but they do
Okay.
can understand each other. Is my understanding. My
Mhm.
dad actually spoke all of them when he's alive, but he never taught me any of it, so I didn't speak any of it.
Mhm.
And so I think because they're from southern China, they're the one like originally start import export business. They're near the
Okay.
ocean line,
Yes.
so that's most of people actually the first group of people actually go abroad and start business and stuff like that. And I think that's why people in US or including other probably countries that think Cantonese is more popular knowing because those in a sense the first group of people immigrant to other continents, I guess. I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah. I mean, it even makes sense with the when you said those down there, even though they speak Cantonese, it might be a little different. Because I mean, if you think, you've been in America now, we have different accents.
Yeah.
Like you're over there in the West Coast of California. I'm in the South. Southern accents way different than like Northern accents up in New York. Boston accent, we all know, is a very different accent. So even that we understand each other is different though. It's all the same language, but you got to know the phrases, the slang, all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, we all speak the same language. It just sounds a little.
So in China, that's not way beyond accent. So everybody speak Mandarin with an accent. And in fact, if you grew up in Beijing, you actually spoke, I think it's not a lot of people learning that anymore. They're actually like a kind of Beijing local dialect. So it's not exactly Mandarin. But when we go to school, we learn Mandarin because it's a government language. But if I go to take a test, how I spoke Mandarin, I would not pass the exam because I actually don't speak proper Mandarin per se.
Okay.
So if you're a news anchor in China, you have to pass the Mandarin exam. That's the way you speak, have to exact pronunciate a certain word exact ways. So it's a lot of obvious nuances per se. So we do have accent. Like people will hear me talking, they will guess I'm from Beijing. Like somebody talk to me in Mandarin, I know they have accent from somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah.
That makes sense because, like I said, when if I was to hear someone from New York, I could pick it out. Like, oh, you're not from here, man. I can tell. We definitely have that in common for sure. So we got on the hutongs. That was pronounced right? Hutongs, the alleyways.
Hutong.
Hutong. Okay.
Okay.
One of the other ones I don't know when this thing was built. It doesn't say.
Okay.
Do you know of it? But it is in Beijing. The Dragon Escalator.
The Dragon Escalator?
Yes, the Dragon Escalator.
Okay.
Apparently
Obviously, I know what dragon is. Escalator.
It's in the north of Beijing in Longqing Gorge, if I said that right.
How do you spell the escalator?
Yes. ESCLA. ALATOR.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's the world's largest outdoor escalator. It takes
Okay.
visitors.
Let me see. Huh. I don't know what that is. I'm looking at a picture. I never heard of it. And the north of Beijing. So place.
Yeah, it looks fairly new, so I didn't know if it was been built after you left or.
I don't think it's built while I was there. Let me see if I can find any histories of this thing. Yeah, the first thing come up is apparently it's an article in English, which is not helping. So I actually think I went to that park once, but definitely not with that dragon.
Yeah. I mean, I saw this big old dragon. I was like, I got to ask about that for sure.
It's pretty new, that's for sure.
One of the things I also looked at was, but what year did you move to the States?
2009, I guess.
Okay. So this thing was founded in 2002. So hopefully you can speak about this. Chinese Watermelon Museum.
Okay, is this like a test, dude?
No, like I said, I've always, in doing this, I've always found stuff that even the people didn't know. But apparently, Beijing city proper is one of the heaviest watermelon producing regions. So they built a watermelon museum.
Oh my, never heard of it.
It says founded in 2002, the China Watermelon Museum is 4,000 square meters of exhibits tracing the origins of the watermelon from its birthplace in southern Africa to its eventual ascent into apparently space. So I learned watermelon went to space. The futuristically modern museum is packed with wax watermelons displays, the various varieties from around the world, surrounded by abundant neon lighting. It shows every aspect of watermelons from the history to growing methods to China's, and it says in quotations, watermelon culture.
Yeah, never heard of it. I am looking at the website. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I know it's, I mean, in a sense, you say, okay, it's in Beijing, but I can tell you that's actually pretty far. That would be like, if you consider where I grew up, like closer to downtown. So Tiananmen Square, Forbidden City, that's like downtown, in a sense.
Yeah.
So I'm probably like, if you know the cities, Chinese city actually like, ring. So in the center and the 1 ring, 2 ring, 3 ring. I was at the third ring. And then where this museum, probably like 5 or 6. So that's like, probably for us it's 2 to 3 hours drive to get to that place. Well, and in a sense, it's very funny nowadays. My understanding is, so Beijing used to be very small. That's Forbidden City is Beijing. Then they started expanding the city. So now where those museums at, they didn't used to actually being called in Beijing. They're kind of through the city expansion, they're being included into the city of Beijing. In a sense, at least politically, that's how my understanding it. Yes. They're more in the suburb area, right? Like actually, old time will be middle of nowhere. That's no one go, right? Farmland and stuff like that. So now, because the center of city is so crowded and then the city start expanding, right? People start moving to further places, just like how it works in big city here, to find cheaper housing and fewer people. And then they start developing more in those areas. Yeah. So I never heard of this place, but
I mean, Watermelon Museum, you got to bring that up if you find that. But I think we can get off of like the history and this kind of stuff. I want to ask you then, so you've been in America now for 11 years, what was one of the biggest culture shocks, I guess you could say, since moving here?
You know, I think so. When I came here, funniest thing is when I was in China, I suck at two classes, English and mathematics.
Okay.
Suck at English, suck at mathematics. And I came here, I have a master's degree in statistics, and obviously I speak English for a living. And so, part of it's like, one thing is the education system is very different. I was failing my calculus class when I was in China. And here I was like, my teacher loved me, okay, in calculus class. And for me, like they taught it very differently, the way how they introduce it and stuff like that. And then I think that's one thing I feel here definitely when you talk about culture different, everybody would say US supposed to like have a lot of freedom. And compared to China, probably more governated, right? You don't have a lot of speech freedom or something like that.
Yes.
And on top of that, I think I don't know if you know any Chinese people. It sounds like you know some like people from Asia.
Yes. Yes.
And those people are gonna hate me if I try to stereotype it. Obviously, like most of people from Asia country, right? Asians, we're like very reserved in a culture setting. Like we're more hold within. We don't like talk a lot about our own opinions. So, and I think that's one thing. I came here, everybody say, oh, you should voice your opinions, right? And then you should express yourself. So, but most of Chinese people, at least, and also a lot of people from other Asian country, their culture is like, you do not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
You don't want to talk too much about your own opinions, or you being raised to you're not allowed to have other opinions. I think that may be something like kind of a culture difference, and it took me a while to able to to share about my opinions. Or I think the people here would say like being more authentic, like really just speak your mind, not try to pretend, not to say something just to please you, right? Like just to say what you think. And then I think that's definitely one thing. It's very challenging, and it's funny, not funny, but the part is, so I train dogs for living right now. And one of my specialty, the breed of dog called Taiwan dog. They actually a feral dog from Taiwan. Now, I'm not going to go in political thing about if Taiwan belongs to China type of thing. We're not go there. But everybody would agree it's Asian area. And those dogs have Asian temperament.
Okay.
The dogs are also very reserved and very cautious and fearful. And when this comes to dogs, they become extremely reactive and very difficult to train. So part of it's very funny because I would joke about it. I said, just like the people there. So when you work with dogs like that, you have to go kind of really help the owner to understand the dog's temperament.
Yeah.
And that's actually from, in a sense, the people's temperament. Those how those dogs, in a sense, to I'm no scientist, but there's definitely, however that evolution started, that's the type of dog you're having. They're very, very cautious, very different from dogs here. Like you would say, super friendly with people, just wagging all the time. Those are not the dog I work with. They're actually very cautious and could be aggressive. You try to pet them, they will try to bite you, right? Because they're like, I don't trust people. So it's funny, and I think it's really hard for people here, especially I have clients, if they are like born and raised here, they're having a really hard time to understand the dog's challenge. And the same with the dog trainers in most of the places here. And that's why make training Taiwan dogs extremely difficult.
Yeah.
That's part of like a culture difference there. Like if you are born and raised here, you probably would not really understand what's going on unless maybe you have a chance to go to China, say, not just visit. It's very important here, right? When you're a visitor, you actually don't learn really
Yes.
what's going on. If you really live there and start like living there to understand how things actually work, then
Mhm.
you probably get a better understanding of, oh my God, that's where a lot of things come from. I have a friend who's Chinese and her husband's Caucasian America, right? And they had to live in China for 2 years. And we meet up after they came back to the States, and we asked him how he felt about China.
Yeah.
And he said, living in China actually gave him a lot of ideas and understanding of why his wife acting as the way she is.
Yeah.
But you would not know if you're not living there.
Yeah.
Just how the I guess the culture shape you and how
Mhm.
things are working. I think that's definitely a huge difference
For sure.
between here and the US. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. One thing that piqued my interest that you started on was the education. You said over in China you were failing at math and English, but over here when you got here, your math teacher loved you. So in America, we have the stereotype is Asians are great at math, right? So it's a good stereotype, but it is a stereotype. So my question then is, would you say that the way it's taught in China, I guess, is more strict and stringent, and it's a little bit more lax? So you knew it in China technically, right? But they were asking for certain answers, certain ways that you couldn't really figure out. But when you come here, same math, questions or whatnot. But I guess they were more open to how you came about your answer, to where you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think, well, I think part of like how you came up the answer more of like maybe in not in the higher education realm. So I came here for my master degree. They do care you get the right answer, obviously. They don't
Yes.
they don't necessarily care like you can't write a wrong answer said that's how I
sure.
think
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is. But at the same time, I think biggest thing between China and the US, at least that's, what we learn is always from the news. It's biased. We take
Yeah.
what we think it is. So when I grew up in China, we always say, oh, in US, they have better education. And you came to US, there people will say we should do more how China do
Yeah.
to make sure our kids can read and do mathematics equations. I think it's really hard to find middle point, right? Some of my clients actually call in my training dogs called finding the happy medium, where you're not actually murdering the creativity, but also the kids know what to do. They can't read and stuff like that. So in China, it's more like what we actually call it feeding the duck, right? I don't know if you understand that terminology. So how the duck being fed, they actually grab the duck. There's actually a tube. You put the tube shoved down the duck's throat, and there's actually a lever, right? And then you shove it down the food. And then that's how we fed the duck, right? And then so that's in Chinese education system, especially in lower education, like elementary school, middle school, and high school, right? College is a separate issue, I'd say. So before that, so it's what we call is like a feed the duck system. Means that this is the bunch of things you have to learn, and you have to do this, and this is the only way you can do this, or only way you can answer these questions. There's only one right answer. Now mathematics, I'd say probably like, okay, most of us probably will agree on one answer. If you actually have a theory about different answer, you're probably going to be a scientist. We have the most famous essays called 1 + 1 doesn't equal to 2. That's actually a freaking essay about why it's not, right? And then, but obviously most of us won't be there per se. Most of us will agree, okay, 2 is good enough. So, but I think more come to other things, including history, right? We talk about the historians' history, right? No one knows what happened. But in China, our history class is question and answers. You have to answer the exactly way that the textbook wants you to answer. Now that if we talk about culture, that would be a huge difference, because my understanding, when you learn history here, the teacher wants you to write an essay about your own research and your own opinion pieces,
Yeah.
and how you look at this historical event, right? You find your own interest. So that's not how Chinese education works, right? And I think, in a sense, from that, you definitely kill a lot of creativities.
Yeah.
Because you're not allowed to think on your own, and all you want to do is taking tests. So I'm sure there's stereotype is Chinese people really good at taking tests.
Yes.
Because question and answer, that's easy. So, but when it comes to being creative, that's when Chinese people start coming, kind of getting behind. And I think here, well, obviously my kid's still very young, she's not in school yet. Now my understanding is, people try to okay, doesn't want to be too strict, but then when you let it just loose, that's not going to work either.
Yeah.
Right? But when you're adding too much pressure, you worry you're killing your kids' joy. So I think that's where potentially the culture different make the education system different. And because the different of education system, obviously you're gonna raise different generation, because that's how education shape people. I don't know where was the question already, but I guess I'm a little off topic, but now we're on this.
No, I like that. I like where you're going with that. Basically, to sum that up, it's like over in China, it's by the book only, whereas over here, it's more open to interpretation. You can think outside the box and let your mind just go. As long as you come to the same answer, how you get there is a little bit more lenient, you could say. One of the things that I want to get, because it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to make an assumption. It seems like you would say that in terms of education, our more open-minded, out-of-the-box way here in America is better, slightly, I guess, than in China. Would that be fair to say?
I'd say yes. Obviously, I didn't grow up here. There's no way for me to experience how I grew up differently if I do both.
That's fair.
But I had a quite miserable time when I grew up in the school system. And I think similar things apply here. There are people absolutely hate schools. They feel that still restrict them and not actually helping them to be successful. And again, there's no one size fits all. But I think people hate school here. If they go to China, they're probably really gonna hate it even more. Because you can't not even be in rebellion or anything like that. You're not allowed to, right? You're gonna have a hard time. And I think that's definitely a challenge there. So obviously, if now I'm raising my kid here, I would not say, okay, let me send you back to China so you have a good fundamental understanding of mathematics problems. And we use a lot of memory, try to memorize stuff a lot.
Okay.
Which I hated. So like in mathematics, you have these tables you have to remember. And the other day, me and my husband had a conversation. So he, just background, he's Caucasian. He's born and raised in California. And then, so we have this mathematics equation. I said, oh, I remember this table. That's why I know the answer. He said he never memorized any tables, but he know the answer. Take him a little longer time to calculate it, but he said that's how you calculate it. So you never need to memorize the answer because you know how to get to the answer.
Yes.
I said, right? But then I'm like, why? If you memorize it so fast. So there's like kind of like, you may say it's pro and con, but at the same time, it's not like I don't know how to get to the answer, but I'm like, I have a faster way because I remembered it. And so it's kind of like the difference there. But when it comes to maybe problem solving, I'm probably not going to be as effective as him, because more of me is like, oh, that was on the table, so I'm not sure.
Yes,
right? So yeah, from that standpoint, I definitely say if the school system here really try to help the kids to really about how to create train of thoughts and come up your own answer, I think that's definitely a skill way more important than remember a table with the answer on them. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get what you're trying to say. then I want to jump into, is there something that you feel the Chinese culture is doing better than how we do it in America? Something like, if you could bring it here, that it'd probably be good for us.
Okay, so whatever I say gonna piss off somebody listening, all right?
Hey.
And yeah, and you know what we're going on right now. I try to like not get into politics nowadays. It's just too extreme nowadays. We're living in some real life drama, right? Unscripted, and I think part of it is that I think the challenge here, some of the people like say they refuse to wear a mask and they got really pissed off about it. For me, that's more like probably more common sense than not. Then I think people not as taking it serious compared to people in China. But I think part of it's maybe culture, because government have more power and the people here, they think they're trying to fight their own freedom by not wearing it or try to do that. At the same time, I think it's like also the part not taking it serious as a whole. I think that's, my mother she's over 70 years old. She's high risk. So she's really, really cautious. Like she's not going outside. She tried to like stay in as much as possible. Right. And most of the Chinese people I know, they're really like cautious. And then, but people here, they either kind of listen or semi-listen or completely not listen. And potentially, I do believe they're doing more harm. And people, I know other people, somebody actually told me they'd rather die than not running a business. So they want their business keep going.
Yeah.
And during this situation. Now, part of it, I think the thing people not looking at really is that, I'm going to say this, we're going to sound really bad, but hey. The thing is, when you get it, say you do get COVID-19, right? I say you don't necessarily die anymore. You're going to be super sick. Yeah. And people don't think it's like how big your bill is going to be from the hospital. Can you afford that? Right? That's the real consequences. I think people don't think, right? And I have decent insurance. I think most of people fighting this, they don't even have a good insurance. And they think, well, I want my freedom. If I'm sick, I'm just going to die. That's still worth it. I don't want it, right? But the thing is, if you don't die, you end up in hospital for 10 days, being put on ventilator. Wow, that's going to be a huge bill waiting for you afterwards if you didn't die. And for me, that's more real consequences than people just say, hey, right? And then if I can take something from China, I lived through SARS when I was in high school.
Okay.
I don't think it's like as bad as right now, obviously, so it wasn't a pandemic or anything. But people like really like, oh my gosh, there's a disease going on. We need to take precautions, right? So, and this time I think like, as far as my understanding, I reach out to some of my Chinese friends. They're all like, even though they take it seriously, but they're really calm. They're more calm than the people here. Yeah. They're like, okay, it's not that bad. It's just happening. We just stay home and we get masks and we just wait it out. That's more of the mentality I'm getting from my friend in China. Now people here, well, the initial panic is out of toilet paper. That was at the beginning. And now people like, okay, cooped too long. So now they want to go out and jump in the swimming pool. So, if anything, bring in, maybe it's common sense. That's really, it's so hard to have common sense nowadays. Those are, I think, people not really getting the consequences in a sense, like understanding what could be the harm, even though we're saying, hey, you could get really sick. And
I think one of the things I've noticed as this has gone on, I like how you said the common sense, because I found that like the only thing really common about common sense is everyone seems to think they have it, That's about it. Well, two things I want to mention, because I don't really want to stay much on this topic either, but fuck it, here we are. We're going through. one thing for sure that I've realized, I think of more of the Japanese culture when I say this, but since that is part of the Asian culture as well, is the, respect and honor is huge over there for sure, right? And even before this, you would regularly see people walking down the streets in Japan with masks. Like, it was just everyday life. So for them, it's like, all right, we already doing this, so it's not a problem, right? They have no problem with that. I'm sure it's pretty similar over there in China and Asian culture, no matter where. But one thing it's been, I guess, shown more now here in America that has always been here, but with this, it's amplified, is the right word to say, is that a lot of Americans are, well, it's not happening to me now, why do I care? Like you said, they're not looking into what could happen next week, tomorrow. It's like, I'm not sick now, whoop-de-doo. My family's okay now, whoop-de-doo. And that I think that's definitely a big problem that we have for sure. Because like you just said, you have your mother, she's in her 70s, she's high risk. My mother's in her 60s and she lives with me, so she's high risk. So me, if I was to get it, I'm pretty sure I could fight it off relatively easily. And I have decent insurance as well. So I think I'd be okay. I have a 6-year-old though. A 6-year-old could probably fight it off pretty easily too. Doesn't matter. I don't want my 6-year-old getting that regardless. Same with my mother. You just don't want that to happen. There's too many people that instant gratification is so rampant here in this country that they don't think of others. Empathy is dying, if not dead. That's definitely one thing that started me into doing these conversations with people from all over, even like people with you who are from another country but living here now, or from a country but living somewhere else, is, finding out that we're the same. We come from different backgrounds. We grew up a different way. We know different languages, different religions. It doesn't matter when it comes down to it. We're all we have a lot in common no matter what. And I don't really care if people get mad and comment, oh, you hate America. It's not the case. I was in the Army. That's not it. But that single-minded, arrogant, it's our way or the highway type mentality is not helping anybody. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. Oh, man. Woo!
Yeah, it's true.
So,
And it's challenging, that's for sure.
yes, it definitely is. It definitely is. I'm curious to see what's going to happen, not just with how it's happening here, but around the world. Whenever everything calms down and there's a cure or whatever, I'm curious to see where everything's at, because it's going to be different no matter what. No matter whether the cure is next week, next month, next year, there's going to be a big difference in how things are going about around the whole world. Enough about that, though. So go ahead. I could go on and on, but I don't want to right now. Go ahead, Grace, if you don't mind. I want to go ahead and wrap this up. I'm getting a little hungry. You said you have your Mensa Mutts business going on. Mm-hmm. So tell a little bit about that. You're from over in California. I'm sure if someone has a dog in California is listening, maybe they could reach out to you. So let them know where they can find you. And after this, I'll get with you and put links into the description for how people can reach out to you.
Awesome. So all my training right now obviously virtual. So I have clients from Canada, right, all over the world. So long as your internet get in touch with me, it's no longer an issue nowadays. And so the easiest way to get in touch with me, I actually go to my website, mensa-mutts.com. And I have a free report for people who sign up. It's actually an article I wrote, like a debunking 2 biggest industry norms. And as well, so 3 things you can do to really help you reduce your dog's reactivities. And so people can just go to the website, type in their email, they'll get the report. Then, there's tons of information. I actually write daily to my email list and to
Mm-hmm.
share dog training tips and everything like that. A lot of my dog owners working with me, they actually get a lot of value out of the things that kind of free. I have YouTube channel and stuff too, so they watch what I do.
Okay.
And then there are people, obviously, if they need more hands-on per se, hands-on, no longer actually hands-on, help, or their dogs are very, very challenging. So then they will probably do more training, like private or group session. So the dog I work with in general is like what I call them shy, fearful, and reactive. But in common sense, a lot of people who think their dog's aggressive,
Mm.
more than likely not necessarily because their dog's aggressive, it's actually because their dog's really fearful.
Yeah.
And the aggression just part of the symptom to reflect on the fact that dog's very insecure, kind of like people in a sense. So very, very similar. You know,
Yeah.
bullies are the very insecure people,
Yep.
but they're acting like they're really strong. And those are a lot of our dogs. And Taiwan dog happen to be the most type of dogs I work with because I happen to have a Taiwan dog myself.
Mm.
And they happen to, because they're feral, they're not as domesticated compared to a lot of dogs that you might get here. They are inherited a lot of those fearful and skittish and reactivity type of personality traits that make them extremely hard to work with, as well as I think most of trainers failing dogs like that. The traditional, you know, the obedience and stuff like that, usually not working as well with Taiwan dogs. So that's kind of the type of specialty I work with, dog owners who, especially I say, if you as a dog owner have worked with, like, tried everything, you think you've tried everything, right? The obedience, the medication, right? And you know, and then you went to some reputable trainers and you did all those things and you're still struggling, I might be your last stop, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I have clients that have 3 trainers before me, and that's where they stop at. So yeah, the best way, you know, obviously is website mensa-mats.com. That's will be the easiest way to get to know me. In a sense, I really like, I'd love to people that get to know me a little more before they even want to work with me. It's not like you're not going to call me and say, hey, this is how much I charge, you're going to pay me this much, right? So go to my website, there are tons of information, get to know me a little more and see if we're probably a good fit, then you can decide what's next. Yeah, awesome.
All right, well, cool. Hopefully you'll get a few international customers from this.
Awesome.
I do got a few now. So again, I want to thank you for joining me. It was nice to talk to you. We kind of went off, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you again, Grace, for joining us at Red's Rambles. I mean, hey, you take care of yourself.
You too. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.